And these early parts of the IT service companies, they are taught to hide things, or they are taught to chalta hai attitude kind of.
Correct.
Generally.
Good enough for government work.
हाँ, मतलब you know what I mean, right?
That is not just about whether you can code, but you have to be able to problem solve.
Logic.
Yeah, logical problem solving from business impact, work your way backwards. Even in a technical field like analytics, you have to know your analytics is going to do what. Is it going to allow you to catch up to competitors, beat your competitors, drive automation, reduce your cost?
Yeah.
What is that impact that you're going to create, right? And that's important. That process that you have to go through is important.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our podcast, Talent First. Today we have a guest who is one of the sharpest minds in the AI analytics space that I have come across. He's currently the president at Corridor Platforms in India right now. So hi Aditya, hi, how are you?
Nice meeting you.
How's it going?
Going well. Looks like we are color coordinated.
Twinning, we are twinning.
Maybe you're the younger version of me.
That's a great thing. So Aditya, as I said, we start with the elevator pitch. I know you have been born up in UK and all of that. Hindi is not the most natural things that comes.
Try.
But अगर आप हिंदी में बात करोगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा हमारी ऑडियंस को.
ठीक है, बात करेंगे.
तो आदित्य है कौन? Who's Aditya?
20-25 साल काम कर रहे हैं, बाल थोड़े सफ़ेद हो गए हैं along the way.
Right.
If there's one word that defines me is jack of all trades and a queen of few. Not a king of any, but a queen of few.
Right.
Always focused on broadening my exposure. मेरे एक बॉस हुआ करते थे, उनका नाम था वेड फाइफर, he was an Australian guy. उन्होंने बोला कि he said एक मंत्रा है हायरिंग में, if I had to hire for skill versus hire for attitude, I'll hire for attitude. हाँ, तो उन्होंने जब मुझे हायर किया था, तो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ है कि उनके पास एक कंट्रोलर के लिए जॉब था, फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोलर. तो उनको एक CPA अकाउंटेंट्स मिल रहे थे, रन ऑफ द मिल, विल गेट द जॉब डन. एंड यहाँ मैं था जो टेक से आया था, एनालिटिक्स सीख गए थे, ऑब्वियसली फाइनेंशियल मॉडलिंग सीख गए थे, एंड आई वाज अ फाइनेंशियल एनालिस्ट. एंड ही सेड, यू हैव नेवर डन डेबिट्स क्रेडिट्स इन बुक्स, बट you have a better understanding of business than a regular accountant. So why don't you come on board and try this new gig? And he said, I'll hire for attitude versus hire for skill. So वो मेरी दिमाग चीज़ always बैठ गई कि that is how it should be always, right? And जब भी मैं hire करता हूँ, when I evaluate people's potential, I look for the attitude.
आपका attitude कैसे? How do you define your attitude?
Willing to try anything, anytime. And not feeling afraid of failure. Not having that anxiety of that, and intrinsically वहाँ पे है कि it doesn't matter whether you
how do you define failure? Because when people say they're not afraid of failure, the definition is something that we need to look at. What do you define as failure?
काफ़ी लोग failure में बोलते हैं कि failure of outcome,
right?
आपका जो desired result था, you didn't achieve that, right? मेरे लिए desired outcome is less important. आप जो प्रोसेस में गए, जो आपने सीखा as you were doing it, that is more important. That itself.
Sure.
Failure में भी आप बहुत चीज़ें सीखते हैं.
Right.
जो आप when you work for some mentors or you work for your leaders, there are some good leaders, there are some not very good leaders. आप दोनों तरफ से सीखते हैं.
Sure.
Right? So in my mind, it's always about the process. The learnings itself is success.
Sure.
If the outcome is great, that's an icing on the cake.
Right?
So I've always had that mindset. And once you have that, and if you don't have a fear about trying to validate yourself with other people, then you're in very good territory. And then, you always have a very positive outlook to everything that you do. And you also have आपका जो एक risk appetite होता है ना, वो बढ़ जाता है. Because you're not afraid of trying things because you're not so, what should I say, you're not so stuck up about the outcome. ये थोड़ा बुद्धिस्ट फिलॉसफी है, right? When you think about it, कि follow the middle way, do your thing, outcome खुद में खुद आ जाएगा, नहीं आया तो नहीं आया.
So what we usually see is people like yourself who have a high risk appetite. There is something that आपके childhood में कुछ ना कुछ, there would be certain instances that would have influenced your thought process. These can be your schooling, these can be a different country you are in, these can be your parents, this can be a teacher. So can you talk us about a couple of big instances or influencing instances in your childhood, predominantly when you were around 10 and 15?
जब मैं छोटा बच्चा था, 10-15 age group.
आप कहाँ पे थे?
I was born in the UK, but I came back to India. And then we were in Bombay, Delhi. all around the seaports. Because
how long did you live in the UK in the beginning?
Couple of years.
And
I don't remember much of it because I was born in a couple of years and then we moved back.
Got it.
मेरे dad Navy में थे.
जी.
मेरी mother भी Navy में थी.
Merchant Navy.
No, Indian Navy. हाँ, वो डॉक्टर थी.
Okay.
Dad was in the ships.
Okay, very cool.
So जब हम वापस आए थे, so एक चीज़ थी कि over time, I'm assuming somewhere around the 10 to 15 age group, मैं काफ़ी introvert हो गया था. I was an introvert by nature. And
was it to do with your accent? Like, did you feel that you are not fitting in?
नहीं, इतना accent नहीं था. Maybe there was just a hesitancy in some form and manner, or the awkwardness of the teens.
Sure.
So when you kind of go through that and you start to then become an adult and you start to seeing the world, the baseline is there and you realize that that's not who you are.
Right.
So flowering yourself out from that was essentially, so maybe that in some senses to me, being introvert was a baseline. I don't think that's bad, but I knew that I didn't want to be that. That was not true me. So then, so you make directed efforts not to be an introvert going forward, and then you experience life. I think for me, when I was in my early 20s, मैं US में गया MBA going for the MBA program, and staying out of the house and doing it for the first time completely broadens you because there is no support system anywhere. Right. You're all you. Right? What you do is what you get. So in that way, America is very meritocratic. So that also helped me grow in a lot in a big way.
What was the catalyst when we look at your journey, right? From an introvert to an extrovert, what was that one catalyst event? Was MBA that really made you broaden your confidence?
I know we spoke about this earlier. It was dancing a little bit. So एक चीज़ है कि when you start, and that was not around the MBA time, a little bit later, but when I reflect back, I think more and more I think about it कि आप जब in a social setting, comfortably you dance with the opposite sex or the same sex, doesn't matter, but whichever way, the fact that you have to put yourself out there to do this, it actually innately builds your confidence.
Very interesting.
And you lose the fear, and I think that's it. I think you lose the fear of rejection. And when that happens, it has what I call as waterfall effect on your day-to-day life in a big way. So that was kind of thing. So for me, that was a very big catalyst on a subliminal level that helped me flower out in a big way. And yeah, I think having in the formative professional years for me, when I was in Seattle at Telisma, having really qualified, highly experienced executives who had let go large corporate jobs and come in and help scale that firm. And a couple of them was one of them was a person called Andrew Weil when he was an ex-BCG consultant. I learned a lot about financial analysis, strategy thinking with numbers, and how to simplify complex matter in a way that you can come up with action strategies and things like that, right? So those were the kind of things that also helped me in a big way to bat above my average at that age group. Year 2000 was kind of interesting for me.
This is your third year in job.
I think so, yeah. It was, 97 was a password. That's right. I was third year in job.
Yeah.
मैं financial analyst था. ऐसी छोटी सी room होगी. And we were sitting there with 6 of these executives that I talked about who I had a lot of respect for. And within a matter of 3 or 4 months, we had to take our burn down by $1.5 million per quarter so that we were going to be break even in an environment. In 2000 there was a big recession, right? The tech bubble burst. So वो जो एक compressed, pressure-packed environment in a small room where we had to do the pros and cons, which part of the business में क्या कर सकते हैं, should we cut there, should we invest there. It was a complex, multi-modal decisioning thing. And वहाँ पे जो learning हुई ना, that kind of became part of my ingrain.
That's something I've realized when I talk to leaders. Whenever they were at a stage where top-line growth was the focus, they lost a bit of humility in their thought process. But when the focus was bottom line oriented, I see that leaders have that sense of humility, that sense of grounding.
Yeah.
So now just tell us, right? Like you are early parts of 2000. You are sort of doing a good job. In that company, you are growing pretty fast.
Yeah.
What was your aspiration? Like उस टाइम पे aspiration कभी थी कि खुद का startup करूँगा? या फिर था कि यार I have understood the science, I have understood the art of networking, I have built my own brand. Now I will move smartly, I have certain commitments, so I will have a risk appetite that matches with my commitments, but still have a risk appetite. So thought process क्या थी? मतलब स्टार्टअप के अंदर मुझे फीलिंग ये है कि आपने स्टार्टअप के बारे में उस टाइम पे कभी उस तरीके से सोचा नहीं.
करेक्ट. सो जो सोच थी कि जितना मुझे सीखने को मिलेगा cross dimensionally सीखो. I remember I was in a meeting and this was like an offsite that we had at Talisma, and the CEO and a couple of the folks, we were all discussing product.
Right.
And the product management guys were there, the sales guys were there, we're discussing product strategy. और यहाँ पे मैं हाथ ऊपर करके मैं बता रहा कि we should be doing this, we should be doing this, ये try करो, वो try करो. So I remember distinctly, still hardwired in my brain, the CEO looks at me, and Dan, his name was Dan, he says, Aditya, aren't you the guy who makes the payroll every month? Like, why is the finance guy sitting here and telling me about product strategy?
Right.
But in some senses, that was the mindset. The mindset was कि मुझे, because I'm in a startup, I want to learn a broad array of skills, right? From sales to marketing to strategy to financial to boards, board interaction to how to scale a business. So more than being in a startup, I wanted to take advantage of the fact that I was in one where I had this enormous opportunity to broaden my the T skill base, right? So that was the mindset that was going in my head, and that's always remained. I always wanted to do things which I've never done before, right? And startups naturally have a correlation to that because you have the affinity to do that. When you're in a large firm, you're siloed into one area, right?
But when you introspect, when you look back, do you feel when you were part of that journey, you could have started on your own? Because risk appetite बहुत high होगी ना उस time पे comparatively to now.
That time in my mid to late 20s, US में visa angle का issue था, so it was not so easy to kind of just get out and you were tied to a firm. But on the other hand, in all of these, I was given a lot of leeway to start initiatives within the firm.
Sure.
So I'll give an example. So we set up a small and medium, we had an enterprise tier 1 business in this at Talisman, and then we had a small and medium business which was incubated as one of the first few cloud delivered offerings.
Right.
So we did a whole bunch of stuff there. We had acquired a firm out of LA, and etc. So it was fun to actually go do that and actually build that business out after that acquisition was done. So I got to run businesses within a startup environment and given a lot of leeway to decide the levers of sales, marketing, budgets, and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, the operational elements of delivery.
So you were based out of Seattle.
Yeah.
Now Seattle, as we all know, is the Microsoft hub.
Yeah.
And in Microsoft,
and Amazon hub.
Amazon, obviously. And Indians are like plenty there. So tell us about a couple of sort of mentors or friendships you built in Seattle with Indians in the tech industry that sort of made you learn a couple of things. And what are those learnings?
See, I think Seattle had two main circles, or three. Amazon had one big circle of Indians or Asians. You had Boeing, also had a big one, and then you had Microsoft, right?
Obviously Boeing.
And there are some firms you wouldn't have heard of, like Packard or Costco you've heard of. So Costco's also there, right? So there were these circles there. I think I had, thankfully, through the network, I managed to have folks in each of these firms.
I like it.
And like in Amazon, they were at that time kind of scaling up. AWS was just getting long, and of course they were very much into their core business at that time because they were still trying to make that business profitable, right? The whole selling of books and then selling other merchandise. They were just getting third-party resellers onto it. Microsoft was big on kind of enterprise things that they were acquiring enterprise
Xbox
companies.
And all of that.
Correct, and that was loss making for a long time before it became profitable, right?
Yeah.
So I had folks who were straddling business and tech. And I would hear the challenges that they had, right? The push and pulls in the organizations that they're doing that. Boeing was a little bit more old school, but uske khud ki koi dynamics nahi. But Costco was interesting. I knew somebody who I used to play cricket with.
अच्छा cricket खेलते थे आप लोग?
हाँ, cricket was very, very popular.
In Seattle?
Yes. We had South Africans, Indians, obviously Pakistanis, Bangladeshis. The whole group was going on there.
Wow.
Serious league था.
Sunday को खेलते थे कब?
हाँ, Sunday को there's matches usually on Sundays. There was a guy who was in Costco, and I remember him talking about supply chain because that was an area we never got into that much, right? But when we started to look at this, how he would manage the supply chain. He was handling a lot of the pricing decisions, just-in-time inventory management and all that. So, so you get exposed to all of this beyond the mind-blowing stuff that you're doing within the startup itself, right? So that was a very, what should I say, a culture that kind of brought all of this stuff together. But there was another interesting thing. I was big into sailing, which I didn't talk about.
Into sailing?
Yeah, I didn't mention that previously.
Yeah.
Okay. So I used to have a catamaran, 18-footer catamaran.
Of your own?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, if you ask my wife now, she's still not happy about that one.
You still have it or what?
No, we gave it to the University of Washington.
Okay, nice.
So I used to sail. Catamaran.
Wow.
I used to windsurf. Sports was always a big thing. वहाँ पे very interesting experience था कि there was an area between Washington and Oregon. It's called the Gorge, and it's a river, a very deep river and a fast-flowing river.
Sure.
So I used to go sail there, and there were two very interesting events which kind of are formative when you look back in hindsight, right? So one was there was a class of boat, and there were a set of Olympians who were actually racing in that fleet.
Okay.
So I got to race with a couple of current Olympian champions in that fleet. And
how did you do?
It was we did okay.
We did okay.
Yeah, we were in the top
not
5.
Bad, not
we were
bad.
in the top 5 in a fleet of 20.
Not bad.
And what is interesting to me, or what I assimilated there, was how humble these highly skilled sailors were and their willingness to teach. I was probably the only Asian in a sea of white, right? Because it was relatively a white sport. But leaving that aside, just the mindset of nurturing talent that I saw in these sportsmen was amazing, right? The second interesting event related to the Gorge was I had to be rescued like a 4-hour rescue. So I went out, and it was, used to get 5-6 foot waves, etc. So I had to be rescued by this particular person who I did not know. He was just sailing there.
Wow.
And, I had to tie my boat to behind his windsurfing board, and then kind of we had to go upstream and come back to the shore.
Right.
I ruined his afternoon that day, but he did it because for him, we were part of a community of windsurfers.
Right.
So my point being that, these kind of things, when you reflect back, they somewhere get imprinted on your brain of what is considered community behavior, right? And that translates to work. All of this thing is work-life balance is all like a circle, as
Sure.
Bezos talks about it, right? But yeah, so
you stayed in this company for what, 9 years?
Yeah, 9 or 10 years.
And then we see you go to a company for a year in a sales kind of role.
Yeah, that was again stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And trying to do something that I had.
At that time, as a salesperson, now I know because as part of your job, which is holistic, sales is obviously a part of it.
Yeah.
What were some mistakes you did in corporate enterprise sales that time that you will not repeat again? Without naming instances or you don't repeat again.
I think strategic account mapping is a skill that you have to take very seriously, and knowing where the centers of power are.
Influencers, key decision makers.
Yeah, influencers, who's an influencer, who's got the money bag, and understanding those dynamics and where you need to focus attention on is not something that comes naturally.
So for someone like me, let's say in our business, we also need to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I was telling you about certain of our accounts where we are trying to figure it. Now, if you could tell me like some playbook, what could I do to figure that out?
Somebody who understands what the power structure is. Because org charts you can easily get, right? That's the easy part. That's static, right?
Yeah.
But really understanding from a beachhead what the direction of the firm that you're trying to build a business in, what are their hot levers? Obviously, if they're public, they can tell you some of that. But if you get some of that insider information that you can use to, and this is very important, one big thing that I learned was solution selling. This is, just not just saying that I've got these widget or services, how can I help you? Versus saying, I know that these are the areas you're looking to build. What if I could help you with these? So you have to preempt it with solution selling. Solution selling and understanding power centers to me was very critical in really building. See, end of the day, they say, this is a cliche, people buy from people, right? Or people sell to people. End of the day, you have to trust me that I have your back if I'm going to invest in your services or product, right? So it's very critical in this scenario to know the past centers, to be able to take, and this is really boils down to core problem solving, right? To say that, oh, these are the various areas that business is investing in. What can I do in the whole cogs, so to say, where I can help them achieve those goals? And you have to do core problem solving yourself. You have to get comfortable doing it yourself, and then having these influencers / people who bat for you to go, brainstorm these ideas with, and then finalize it, right? And then you go pitch it, right? So I think solution selling, I know it is a learned science now, but it's a very critical element if you want, and you have to do it consistently, and you have to get good at it, and you have to make less mistakes, and then you really zoom. And some of the salespeople I worked with who were way more experienced than me in enterprise selling, I learned a lot from them as how they were doing solution selling, right? So there's an art element to it, but there's a very strong element of rigor and discipline that goes along with it.
So I think what I am trying to understand is you cannot be transactional.
You cannot be transactional.
You cannot just go to them and say, as you rightly said, this is what I have.
Yeah.
You have to say, this is the problem that you have.
Yeah.
And this is what we can do to solve that problem.
Yeah. And even if you get it 50% right, the other person's already starting to listen to you because you're speaking in their lingo.
Sure.
Right? तो उससे बड़ा फायदा होता है कि even if I didn't get it right, saying, okay, you're on the right direction, how about this and how about this? You just convert the person towards your side when you do something like that happen.
And what you rightly said, a suggestion to us, to hire someone from that industry, from that domain, can definitely help us. Fair enough. So now, after that journey, we see that you go to SG Analytics.
Yeah, for 2 years.
For 2 years. And this is 2008 to 2010?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
And so my assumption is when you took a leap in your career of getting into sales, the world economy crashed.
Correct. 2008 was the housing crisis.
And being in sales at that time in any industry would not be a very great thing.
And there were some imperatives to move to India at that time also because my kids were young. So having them close to the family was an added advantage also.
So in 2008, if I'm not wrong, there were still a very few boutique, pure play analytics providers.
Yeah.
I think Mu Sigmas and Fractal and a couple of them were still there, but still not that many.
Yeah.
And SG was one of the first few to get into it. And then we see a gold rush sort of thing happening in this boutique analytics space in 2011 to 2015-16 bracket when many open.
Correct.
So tell us, back in 2008, I think the head was Mr. Gupta.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were working with him in the same org. What were you guys thinking with respect to analytics, with respect to data science, decision science, whatever you call it, at that time?
Okay, so I'll just set a context here. So I had done a lot of financial modeling. I got my CFA along the way. So there was some, street credentials attached to that. To me, getting into kind of more on the how can analytics be used from a prediction perspective to drive outcomes probabilistically, that was new. And there weren't a lot of new code. You had to be fairly self-taught.
Yeah.
And you also, it's very important, even as we were building it at that point of time, it's very important to be aware of what you can do in the short term versus what you can do in the midterm, because it was still early stage. There was a lot of demand, but you had to, there were too much discovery. Yeah, you could be distracted. So you had to kind of hone into certain areas. I feel like I learned a lot on the job there. When I came on board, then the firm was mostly around investment research, quite a bit. So we kind of build out the entire analytics arm there. So we really helped, build that
market research kind of thing they were doing,
and investment research. So a lot of investment research work, like financial investment research with banks in Europe. And it was interesting because it was fairly greenfield because again, there was no talent pool there. And if you walked in and if you had a good strategic mindset to it and you were able to translate that to an analytics strategy, you had a real opportunity. So we did that. For me, it was a phenomenal test bed to learn, try things and see how it worked. And then I translated that to Fiserv.
This was your first job in India?
That was my first gig in India, yeah.
Now tell me, when you came to India, in a working culture structure, as opposed to the US, what were your few observations in the beginning? And as observations, what happens is once we come from a different ecosystem, we sort of critically evaluate a lot of things.
Yeah.
Or analyze a lot of things, goods and bads both.
Sure.
So what were your observations? And you're like, why is this happening? And like, What was that thought in your head?
So I won't make it SG analytics specific. I'm just broadly speaking.
Fair enough.
I think that would be fairer way to answer the question.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just put my thoughts on that a little bit.
So in India, the culture around a hierarchy, was that one thing that I'm sure you were expecting it, but
I think, and I'll be a little bit controversial here, right? So this mindset that, and things have changed over time, but at that point in time, the mindset that when you're heading delivery and you're getting work done, the person who's doing the work, who's working with you or reporting to you, whatever, being able to produce a 90% deliverable so that you can add the 10% whiz bang. Now that's how strategy consultant firms like McKinsey or BCG work. But that's not an easy thing. Yeah. The ability for people to think 360 and top down and say, all right, the client is expecting this and this is a little bit of wow factor I can put in here and this will really wow the client and this is what I've got. Now help me polish it and take my diamond and kind of really polish it. That mindset was not there. The mindset was, can I do the bare minimum to get it in front of a client? And then I had to, there were times overall, whether, these firms that I work for, that I had to heavy lift quite a bit to get it to the point. I didn't see that, interestingly. For me, that was a big culture change from the way folks work in the US. Like, I felt, and maybe there was some element of positive select there, so the type of people in Seattle, etc., that we were working with, there's a very strong ownership and pride in producing the best quality work that you can do and then have somebody else help you kind of get it.
My analysis on that is, the reason is that all of these people in these companies, they started their careers in IT services companies. And these early parts of the IT service companies, they are taught to hide things or they are taught to chalta hai attitude kind of.
Correct.
Generally.
Good enough for government work.
You know what I mean, right? I think that can be a reason why you...
That could be. And second could be that they just didn't get exposed to a lot of that in their educational formation. In some sense, what you're doing with your firm is a little bit of that element, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to raise the game, and I say that even to folks that I work with today, that it's not just about whether you can code, but you have to be able to problem solve.
Logic.
Yeah, logical problem solving from business impact, work your way backwards. Even in a very technical field, which I'm in, and I'm very comfortable with that, even in a technical field like analytics, you have to know your analytics is going to do what? Is it going to allow you to catch up to competitors, beat your competitors, drive automation, reduce your cost?
Yeah.
What is that impact that you're going to create, right? And that's important, that process that you have to go through is important. And I think, again, coming back to your question, those are the skills that are not taught in schools. So you were taught programming languages, you were taught, let's say, financial modeling, you were taught the basics of P&L balance sheet and how to read them, but you were not taught these next level of skills. So if you don't know that, it's very hard. You have to learn that on the job, and hopefully you have mentors who are enlightened to these things and can help you with that. So those are the challenges I felt.
Now,
enthusiasm was strong though. Let me not. I don't want to sandbag this one.
Sure.
Enthusiasm was strong, but यहाँ पे there was some issues there. How do you get it from where you are to a client delivery that the client would be pleasantly surprised?
तो अदित्य, आप मुझे एक चीज बताओ, आपको तब तक 10 साल हो गए थे काम करते, 10-11 साल, 8-10 साल तो हो ही गए थे, आप 30, 31, 32 के हो गए जब आप इंडिया में काम करना शुरू किया. नाउ आप, बिकॉज आप एक सिएटल उस बैकग्राउंड से आ रहे थे, आई एम श्योर यू वुड बी द स्मार्ट पर्सन इन द रूम. You average say.
I'm not sure of that. Ask my wife that question.
You get what I'm trying to say, right? So you will be smarter than the average person in the room. Now you are making certain observations that people don't have a 360-degree mind frame, holistic mind frame. उस टाइम पे आपको नहीं लगा यार कि I should start up? Because I'm just trying to understand a person like yourself who has always been the smarter one in the room. What has stopped?
I don't think there was one trigger. I think.
US में मैं समझ सकता हूँ सब शाणे हैं, सब स्मार्ट है, तो तब लगता है ठीक है, चलो ये है, रिस्क एपेटाइट है हमसे, पर इंडिया के लगता है सब गधे हैं. मतलब I'm just trying to be very diplomatic about it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get your question. And I guess in some way, I always wanted to be in a global setting versus an India-centric setting.
Got it. Fair enough.
Right? So
that's the answer.
Yeah, and so if there was an entity of a certain size, not very large and not extremely small, where I got an opportunity to, and you talked about earlier, like Eric Schmidt, I'm not comparing myself to him.
Yeah.
Just let's be very clear that he's way there. But in that kind of analogy, if you apply it, yes.
So what we'll do is the thumbnail of this podcast will be Eric Schmidt of analytics.
No. Don't go there. Don't go there. No. Yeah.
Just kidding. Fair enough.
He might take offense to that.
Yeah. Fair enough. So now coming back to the journey, right? You stay in SG for like what, 2.5 years?
2.5 years.
And then what happens?
Then it was Fiserv. So
this is a big company. This is probably the only big MNC that you joined, if I'm not wrong.
Well, the first job was at Motorola, so a couple of years. But that was engineering job. Yes, and I was a very enlightened president there. His name was Sri Hari Gokhale. He's in a firm called Lentra.ai now, LOS, Lending Origination Systems. Anyway, so he saw the potential, and a little bit like Wade, who's an Australian guy who I worked for earlier. The mindset was that, we can actually build an entire asset of capabilities out of Fiserv Global Services, where Fiserv was in a unique position because they had access to all of this mid-tier banking data, right? And as long as they got the client consent, you could use that data and give them analytics, specific marketing or prospecting oriented analytics that would help them scale and be able to acquire clients or deepen relationships, right? Remember, these mid-tier institutions have 1 or 2 people in their MIS team. That's it. They're people who can write a little bit of SQL code, and that's it. A little bit of marketing savviness, right? So if you're able to offer, so we built out this offering called Decision Optimization Services, or DOS. Bad name because DOS, had a connotation of DOS. But it was the right mindset, where DOS was about. It's not just about analytics or models, but it's about optimizing decisions so that you accelerate, whether it's more deepen your current relationships or acquire more new relationships, right? You're optimizing decisions, right? So it was the right frame of mind that we had. So we created this capability called predictive scores in the marketplace. And उसके लिए बहुत orchestration करना पड़ता, because when you're working at a firm that was about $5 billion, give or take at that time.
Damn.
Fiserv.
In revenue,
correct. Now they are more like 10 or 12 with acquisitions. They got merged with WorldPay. So the critical thing there was that we had to, in an enterprise setting, we had to orchestrate with all of these core banking groups within Fiserv, right? And that was, it was a lot of work, because all of them had some overlap of offerings. Maybe it was BI oriented or what have you, but we had to kind of form relationships within the Fiserv community so that you could build an offering, collect all the bill payment data or core banking data, etc., and kind of put it all together and then build this offering that you could deliver as a cloud delivered service. So that's what we did. So it was a very interesting challenge, and we were quite successful in kind of getting this thing going. So
and this is also in India.
I was based in India, but I used to travel quite a bit back and forth in Atlanta in India. So DOS was based out of Atlanta in Georgia. So we were building this offering.
I studied in Atlanta for 4 years. Yeah.
Where did you
Emory.
Emory, yeah, okay. You're in Emory.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, I used to live in Alpharetta.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
So Fiserv they had acquired a firm called CheckFree. So they were in Johns Creek and Alpharetta. Anyway, so point being that, that was a very innovative offering, and I think it was innovative not just because it had analytics or prediction involved in it, but it was innovative because Fiserv was primarily a core banking transaction processor. Now guess what happens there? Every 2 years you go out for contract renewals, cost per transactions have to be reduced. Nobody ever walks in and says, okay, I'm going to increase your cost per transaction. But the moment you say, these transactions have economic value in them, and I can help you uncover insights that can drive better insights for you to cross-sell, or better insights around retention.
That's very strong.
Or help you find proxy clients that you can acquire,
That's the real
lookalike. So then you change the game, right? So not only do you defend, so here's going back to strategy, not only do you defend your current cash cow streams, but you add in a few extra streams on top of that. And that's what we were trying to achieve with this offering. I think we were reasonably successful.
Perfect. So now we see a couple of stints that you do from 2011 to 2016, 17.
There was Zafin and Synaptic,
Just walk us through these 5-6 years. My assumption is by this time you are more matured enough to know how your career is going to pan out. You are sort of in the zone, and I'm sure you are at a point where a lot of options are there for you. a lot of thoughts can come across your mind.
Sure.
But what I personally see is you are still focused, and your focus is to have that 0 to 1 kind of kick of building something, of being at that inflection point.
Yeah.
Now, as a person who's in that zone, you would be 35 at that time, give or take?
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s. What are certain things that you evaluate while picking or deciding what course your career should take?
Yeah. So, एक बार आपने एक body of knowledge प्राप्त कर ली, you've earned it, you learned it experientially. एक बार आप वो सीख गए, then आपको you don't want to be stationary in career, right? You want to say, how can I leverage that to take it to the next level? But now, then it becomes about go to market. You're building out an entire line of business, whether you do it like you've done in a startup setting of your own, or as part of another organization.
Sure.
So aspirations change up, right? Aspirations go with go with time,
right?
So Zafin, which is a very interesting relationship pricing software firm out of Canada, fantastic CEO Al Karim Sonji, who's based out of Vancouver. So they were partners of Fiserv. So that's how I got to know of him. And there was a president there also. His name was Mike Sigro, and he's no longer with the firm. But both Mike and Karim were highly influential for me. They brought a lot of strategic mindset to the table of how banks should be looking at customer relationships holistically and pricing products to the overall relationship footprint that they have. Right? And then idea was, okay, can we then fit an analytical offering on top? A little bit like Fiserv, but Fiserv was a little bit more transactional. This was around, can we do relationship analytics and loyalty analytics on top and offer that as a productized offering on top of the core platforms that Zafin had, which was called My Revenue. Right? So we built My Analytics on top of My Revenue.
So tell me one thing, right? Across all of these organizations, what I'm seeing is that when you go there with the team, you guys sort of figure out new ways to look at business, existing business that you guys already
have. And the data that you have.
The data that you have.
Yeah.
Now, one approach is to think from your organization level and go deep. The other is to just be observant to what other organizations are doing. Now, what I personally believe is that the world we live in, there is a lot of information. The industry that you are talking about, there are a lot of companies that operate in this industry, and there are a lot of best practices that are there to learn.
Yeah.
So could you tell us about a couple of best practices or a couple of sources of information that you used to look at that influenced you to take certain right decisions?
It's a broad question, but I'll try and address it in a way that would make sense in today's world, which was analytics, less so today than earlier, was still seen as a voodoo science a bit, right? You had to have a master's in statistics, right? You had to have a good amount of work experience. The bar of entry was high, right? And so the paucity of data scientists. That was the situation maybe 6, 7, 8 years back, give or take. And today we look at it as now highly automated, self-serve, right? So in some senses, in all of these, we were trying to cross the chasm of having it being bespoke, tied to a few set of people who understood this really well, and delivering it as, let's say, a consulting offering, to can we make it self-serve and democratize that across a larger base of institutions or customers, right? So if you have that mindset, to your point, when you see powerful opportunities to provide business impact using analytics, you say, well, how can I productize this and deliver it to on a one-to-many platform? So cloud delivered for sure, right? So that was always sticking in my head. And one of the folks that I worked with, I can tell you a quick anecdote. His name was David Rose, very smart. He was heading the DOS platform, and I was working very closely with him. And one of the things we were sitting in a conference room in Atlanta, we were looking at some model performance, and we were looking at the ROC curve, which is a measure of model performance. And somebody had, one of the models had created 78, 79% ROC, and we all sitting there, and David looked at all across. He said, you know what, that's great, but that's a consulting gig. What if I could offer something similar? And we all started to nod our heads, and it made sense. So what if I just gave 70% ROC, but I gave it to 25 institutions versus singularly spending a good $30,000-$40,000 to deliver maybe another 10% lift on that, right? So the question is, can I democratize, give you good enough value for the money that if you're spending $30,000 in getting a performance that is about, let's say, 80% of what a top tier would give you, is that good enough? Is that a good benefit to value ratio? And if it is, then why not do that at scale and deliver it as a productized offering? And I think that, that's an example, but that anecdote stood with me all the time, that we need to productize it in a way that people can self-serve, get the benefit, and get good, quote unquote, good enough benefit. If they get that, then, the whole story starts to make a lot more sense.
How important is the story? Because my question is that the solutions that you're talking about, there are a lot of techies around the world, in a lot of these companies, then there are many solutions that we see. But the go-to-market, what we see is what makes the difference. And go-to-market, what I am trying to understand is how important is the narrative? Like the way you explain it to me. How important is the narrative?
So I have a point of view on that. The point of view is like this. Any cloud delivered offering, because we always talk about that nowadays, there is no other form, right? Or essentially, unless it's legacy, then we're not talking about that here. It's important to know what are three things that you're really good at. So if you think about concentric circles, in the center of the circle are three things that you're good at, not 2 and not 5, just 3, right? Make it 3.
Right.
So 3 that you're good at, and then let's say 10 that are surrounding it, which you might be average at, and you do it because you need to fit something. We don't sit in an island, you sit in an ecosystem, right? It's very important to know when you're building a product, an MVP, you're trying to launch your own offering in the marketplace. You need to know what the 3 things you're good at, explain them really simply, and then keep repeating that message in different forums that you're at. Whether it's your pitch deck to your investors, whether that's to your client, whether it's solution selling, but around those 3 pillars.
I relate to it.
Right?
Very well.
Because there is a natural seduction here of saying, you know what, let me try to do the 10, because somehow I don't want the client or the prospect to think that I'm not good at the rest. But it's very hard to be good at 10 things. The more narrower and deeper you are, backed by your domain expertise, the better you are in the bracket of your prospect to say, these guys are good here, for that I will use that, and then I'll integrate them in. The moment you say that I'm good at a lot of things, people start to naturally distrust you a little bit, or they realize that you're batting above what you really are actually capable of doing. So it's very important to know the 3 things that you're really good at and build your offerings around that. That's very critical. And the messaging has to be simple. It has to be tied into the business impact, right? And when you do that, so at Corridor, we are very clear that we don't build AI. We enable AI-driven decision workflows, and we are all about governance, compliance, and automation. And we enable you to compress your time to market, right? So we are an enabler in an analogy of a train. We're not the train. We are the tracks. We are the tracks on which you run. We are upgrading your tracks so you can go fast, right? And we don't get into the seduction of like, we can also build you LLM models. We can, but that's not our core offering. We're enabling you to go fast towards your business impact. That is our core offering.
So basically, initially what Jio did, now that they are into everything, Jio Cinema and all of that, but initially that was the whole thought of Mukesh Ambani, to build the railroads of modern India.
That's right.
Something on those lines.
That's right. Now, when you have firms of that size, there are wherewithals where they are able to build, really pillars. They're at a different scale, but you don't get there from 0 to there, right? So when you're starting off, you need to have strong 3 legs, so to say, and then build from there.
So tell me one thing right now, the way you are talking, what I realize is you are a good networker, like generally.
Good networker,
And most of the jobs that you would have gotten in your life would be through a networking play only.
I agree.
I don't think so you would have applied for any of these.
I don't think so.
Right. So explain to us how has networking played a role in your life? And what are some tips, thoughts around it that we can learn from?
You're making me sound smarter than I am, but
that's my job.
Okay. So, but there's one nugget that I can, and I tell that to who I work with, right? Which is this very simple phrase of, you owe a net credit to somebody, or somebody owes a net credit to you. What it implies is that if I'm interacting with you, and we did that a little bit earlier today, right?
Yeah.
I said potentially I could introduce you to these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
You didn't ask for it, did you?
Yeah,
but I offered it up.
Yeah.
I guess now it's subliminal. There wasn't a very big strategy in my head, but that's just now second nature. But that's the point of saying that in networking, in building social relationships or trust, it's important that you selflessly figure out how you can help the other person before you figure out how that person can help you.
Well said.
The quid pro quo is very critical. We get that. Everybody realizes there's a quid pro quo. In simple terms, I get something, you get something out of the relationship. Then it's an equal relationship.
Right.
But you know what? You take the first step forward and help the person on the other side. And
Brilliant
that is the best way to network. If I can help you in any form and manner, whether it's through an insight or an opportunity or some talent pool that I am aware of that could help your organization.
Sure.
In any form and manner, if I can help you, then you build long-term relationships where then you can call in the favor. So therefore, they need to have a net credit relationship with them, where you can call in a favor later on when you need your help. And who would not want to be in friends with somebody who has, involuntarily or without being asked for, helping that person out? So I have that mindset, and I think it's helped me well so far. And that's kind of how I think about it. I mean, there's one thing if I had to say that would add value, that would be it.
Now, when people look at networking in today's day and age, they are realizing the power of personal branding.
Yeah.
Now, till now, distribution was extremely focused in the hands of few. With social media, everyone can have their own individual distributions.
Sure.
What we are realizing. Now, how do you look at personal brand, and how do you look at it in context of networking?
I think you're doing a great. I mean, this is a question you could answer for. You could answer better than I would. But I think it's multimodal, right? There is elements of showcasing, and multimodal in the sense that there's elements of showcasing it with artifacts that you put out. Let's say put it out on LinkedIn, or you do your podcast, and also the community that you build around it, right? I think any branding that is self-promoting explicitly is doomed for failure. Doomed for failure, right? But if the branding comes as part of something, again, going back to the earlier point, where the other person gets some benefit of experience or an insight that is valuable to them, they naturally start following. I mean, that's what influencers do, right?
Right.
So I have to be able to influence something that is beneficial to you. And if you put all of these various branding initiatives or marketing initiatives in the various social media channels that are there, with that as being your core tenant, your first principles that you operate on, then I think you're going to be successful. Now, there's the mechanics of execution that you have to take care of, but I think that's how you become successful. And you build a long-term brand where people get stuck to you for long-term, and they're willing to listen to you and all of that kind of stuff. So.
When people look at brand, right, there is one thing that a lot of people say, that perception is reality. And I want to understand at a business level, at an enterprise level, when you're doing serious business, do you think that is the case? Can perception become reality?
Like fake it till you make it? Something like that?
Yeah. Because a lot of people who are starting out today, and I talk to them, I see that that's what they're doing. Now, no one will accept it. I see that's what they're doing. So I'm curious to understand, what do you think about that thought?
You have to be an eternal optimist if you are starting something of your own, or you are in a part of a small group of people that is building something out, right? If you're not an eternal optimist, then you're not in the right place.
Right? You need to know.
Yeah, or you have to really believe in your idea even if the market doesn't get it, right?
Fair enough.
It's like when, and this is a cliche story, but when Steve Jobs came out with the initial Mac, right? There was no market there. He created the markets, etc., right? So in some senses, you have to be an eternal optimist. Now, you should not be, I'm going to be a bit controversial here. You should not be Elizabeth Holmes, right? You want to be now that's like, now you went to the far right? So maybe there is a Goldilocks zone between being extremely self-critical and pessimistic and being optimistic to the point where there's fraud being committed, right? So there's a Goldilocks zone in between that you need to be at.
So be a dreamer, but don't be a fraud.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and you are going to have bad days, and you're going to have days where you'll say, well, I've got, and it's not just about you because you've hired a set of folks, so you're making payroll for them, and you are as responsible for their success as you are responsible for your success and your financial well-being, etc. So it's important that the leadership mettle is tested during the hardest times, right? And I think the environment, the times that we're living in right now are hard times across the space. I mean, there's nobody that is sailing in clear air anymore right now, right? So this is the hardest time where your management theories get tested, your mettle gets tested this time, right? And some of the, the mental muscle that you're building right now, the body of experience, is really something that will stick with you downstream. You'll come back and you'll reflect on it and say, I learned a lot during that time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is actually not just about your personal motivation, but if you're doing a startup, it's about the motivation of the folks that are working with you.
Sure.
Because they might question you like, hey, you haven't done this in the last 2 years. And what's going on here? And while you cannot be, you have to be factual in terms of where you are, but you also have you also need to have a realist point of view that you can bring them on board and say, what, we just need to keep at it. Because then the probability of luck will favor you. But you cannot get off the tram here, essentially, right? So that, I think those are the areas that leaders get tested a lot. Like you said, in good times, the tide's high. When the tide's low, rocks are showing. You have to be able to navigate the rocks. And it's not just in the marketplace around demand, but also from your talent pool. You have to keep them motivated on this task as this is going, right? And that's not easy. And it's actually a fairly lonely personal journey in my mind. Like you have to figure it out, right? You might get a few executive coach, you might read a few books, etc. But
mostly BS.
Yeah. Okay.
Mostly.
James Clear is good. Have you read that book, Atomic Habits? Oh, that's a good book.
That's the book.
That's a good book. I'm just making.
A lot of people have recommended it. I've not read it.
It's a good book. It's a good book. So read that one. But yeah, some of them will be BS. But the point is, the lonely journey. You have to figure it out, and there's a custom sauce on how you make it happen, which should be authentic to you. And I really believe in that. So.
Fair enough. So now you joined Corridor in 2019.
That's right.
How old were you back then?
45, 46.
45, 46. Now, what I am personally seeing is there are a lot of leaders in India who are at that juncture where they are in their late 40s or something like that, early 50s, where they have worked in services, in an analytics setting. Now they are at a juncture where India itself will start building products.
Yeah.
India itself, because with AI and all of that, building products will get democratized. A lot of new players will emerge, and these players would require people who could think at architecture level, who could think at engineering level at scale.
Correct.
So these leaders, a lot of them are right now contemplating whether they should join a startup in an executive position as a co-founder, as a president or something like that. No, you did that. And again, I know a bit why you joined and why you guys are scaling up, because of the beautiful product that you guys have. But tell me at a blank canvas level, what are certain key levers a leader should look at while evaluating an opportunity with a startup?
ठीक है. So एक most important चीज़ जो मेरे दिमाग में आती है कि is the market opportunity large for that entity that you're planning to join? उसकी market opportunity बड़ी है कि is it limited in any form and manner? So the segment that they're going after.
Benchmark कैसे करोगे? बड़ी क्या होती है? 100 बिलियन भी बहुत बड़ा है, 1 बिलियन भी छोटा है. Like how do you benchmark it?
Okay, I would say any market sizing of an opportunity that is $1 billion plus is fair game. And कभी-कभी ऐसे भी होता है कि you know that the trend is very strong, but it's too early and you do not know the market size of it. But you know the trend, the undercurrent is very strong.
Sure.
I'll give an example. It's a little geeky example, I'll give it though. So we talk about GAI, generative AI and LLMs. ये सब उस पे बातचीत, सब markets में बड़ा हुल्ला बल्ला है उसके बारे में. Now, the big thing there is in enterprises, where enterprises actually spend a lot of money, insurance, healthcare, banking, right? यहाँ पे success के लिए it's very critical that there is you have to bring a lot of robust governance and stability to these decisions that are being built using GAI or LLMs, etc. Without that bedrock, you cannot make it successful. So if you had ability to build platforms and capabilities that will enable organization, uski market sizing, I don't know, I don't care, but it's such a big thing that you are enabling something to be successful. Even if the market research guys haven't gotten to figure out the size of it, the trend is so obvious that anybody who's doing that is going to have a big kaching downstream. So I just gave that as an example. We are playing in that area. So I gave that example specifically.
So pehla hai TAM. First thing is TAM.
Yeah, total addressable market space is huge. The second thing that when you're evaluating it is, जो दूसरे founders है उनकी क्या credibility है market space में, because क्या होता है कि there are, yes, you have the Google example, again cliche, but remember the Bay Area ecosystem is very weird, right? आप Bay Area में कुछ करोगे, so then it just spreads like wildfire, because the entire community is geared to that. But in the rest of the world, it's not like that. So you might have a fantastic idea, but if you do not have other founders, and that's why the complementary nature of the founders is very critical. If you don't have that, then you might have a great idea, but you will not have an opportunity to scale.
Problem is sometimes these founders are too young for us to sort of look at their credibility. You have to look at that person and evaluate. What are things you evaluate if there's a young founder? There is no pedigree or no credibility.
So then in that case, situation, that scenario, then it's very important that not only you come on board, but you're able to attract one or two, like you talked about some person who's going to be joining you. I know it's probably confidential news right now, but joining you with a certain skill set they bring in enterprise selling, right? A skill that you don't have, which is fine. But that's exactly why you have complementary nature of things, right? So is baat mein, the way I think about it is, if you're coming on board or evaluating an early stage startup for joining them as part of like one big Hail Mary move from where you are stable to this thing, it's important that you are directly influencing the management team that is getting built out of here, right? Where you've got complementary skills across the board, right? Somebody who can run operations well, somebody who has got market credibility. Like in our space, I think that if an ex-regulator was to join our firm, how a huge thing. And thankfully, Oliver Wyman, which is an investor in us, have ex-regulators who are on our board, right? Till Schurman is an example for that. Leaving that aside. But the point I'm trying to make is that it might not be just you, but as long as you realize that this is a complementary affair and you can bring those people together to do this, that's the kind of second. The third thing that I think is very important for startups across verticals is the ability to build partnerships with incumbents in the space, large incumbents in the space.
That's big.
That's big. Because when you're trying to scale, proof of concept ke liye, you can get a few deals going, you establish that people are willing to pay for your offering product or service, right? But then how do you go from 5 to 50?
500 or whatever.
Or 5 to 500, depending on the size, right? You will need to piggyback on relationships of partnerships. So the channel element becomes very critical. If
it's distribution.
The distribution, a 5-year distribution, because you're not trying to do this for 20 years, you're trying to do this in 5-7 years. How can you do this without incumbents who already have relationships? And they will clearly see, that if you bring this to the table, I don't do that, but you do that. Great. There's some value here. So that's also an important element that building channel is notoriously tough. It takes 6 to 12 months to prime a channel, which can then start fruition you into,
And the problem is that whenever you go for channel partnerships, you need to always think in your head that I will get 49 out of this.
For sure.
Because the incumbents will always take 51.
Correct.
Whatever is the case.
That's their cut for introducing you to the channel. But that's also an important accelerator of growth. So I think to your point, the TAM is big, complementary nature of the management
sort of founder market fit. So TAM, founder market fit, and distribution, 3 things.
These are, there are 3, power of 3. Then these will be the 3 main things. That you need. You need to evaluate. And I think it's okay. I think we live in a world where, you fast success, fast failures in some way, right? So if you want to take the jump because at least from an Indian context, I feel there's lots of opportunities abound. Let's say you spend 2 years into it and it just crashed and burned. There's lots of opportunities that will come up after that. And also you would have learned a hell lot of skills along the way when you did that. That itself is very valuable, right? So I think there's a little bit of a win-win there. Even if you didn't knock the ball out of the park, there's still a lot of opportunity for you to leverage that into the next thing. Maybe go back into corporate, that's okay. But you don't want to be sitting 30 years from now saying, I wish I tried that one. That opportunity came across my table and I didn't go for it, right? That regret is a lot bigger than actually doing it and in the unfortunate scenario of crashing and burning.
Sure.
But that's still going to teach you a load of skills, including managing stakeholder expectations. Remember, there's boards involved here, customers, prospect, your employees. You know, they call it experiential learning for a reason, right? So you learn all of these stuff along the way.
So I think in corridor also what we're seeing is that again you guys are in healthcare and other domains also, but banking is still the core.
Yeah, banking is our first leg. Yeah.
First leg, right? And in your journey we see that banking, financial services as financial institutions have always been core to what you do in most cases.
Our lineage is banking.
Lineage is banking. Yours personally as well.
Yeah, and other founders too.
Other founders. So now, can you explain to a layman, where is AI analytics used in banking in like 120 seconds? At a very broad level, because think of me as a consumer. I just go to my bank, I deposit money, I use a credit card, I have a mutual fund. That's all I know about a bank.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell me at a very top level, very macro level, how does analytics AI work here?
So I'll just give you, there was a report done by NVIDIA in 2022. And I know it's not a planted question, so I'm answering your question as you ask it. So they were looking at snapshot today, where the highest level of penetration is. And I'll just give you the top 2 or 3 and the bottom 2 or 3. So the top 2 or 3 is, one is around regs and compliance around AML, huge application of analytics there. Second is fraud, transactional account takeover fraud, where harnessing the power of the graph network and knowing where are the patterns emerging. A lot of this is being kind of semi-supervised in nature because you have to discover it, and you know everything is not existing patterns.
And with AI, it's becoming even difficult.
Well, that's why semi-supervised.
Because other people are using AI to do fraud.
Correct. And the patterns are shifting very quickly. So that's why semi-supervised. You got to quickly trap the patterns, right? So I think AML, fraud is huge. Obviously, marketing analytics has always been very heavy. So these are kind of couple of areas at the top. Interestingly, in the areas that have a lot of opportunity right now is wealth management in banking, like robo-advisory, where robots are advising on.
But robo-advisory has never worked. If you look in the US,
because it has not been done well. That's why it's the least penetrated. There is opportunity, by the way, with generative AI, where you can actually at scale, again, I always think about it at scale, because I'm not talking about the top 2%, I'm talking about the next 35%. So how can you offer them personalized advice driven off analytics, not an army of wealth managers, and improve the quality of the robo-advising? There's a huge opportunity there in itself, right? I see that. I think even in the area of pricing decisions and underwriting, while traditional AI risk modeling or risk strategy and modeling has existed for a long time, but as it expands out, देखो क्या हो रहा है banking में कि now with the open banking standards and embedded AI, both of them, or embedded tech, which includes AI plus open banking, इन दोनों का confluence के साथ क्या हो रहा है कि there's a huge opportunity to build real-time decisioning, which is highly contextualized to what you need at that point of time. You went to buy this thing at a shop and you got a BNPL, buy now pay later offer, which is attractive, and you didn't want to put it all out as capex, so you funded it in 4 payments, and it was offered to you, you didn't ask for it. That is highly contextual, embedded finance. So embedded finance and open banking are 2 initiatives infused with AI, have a huge opportunity, they're unlocking a huge opportunity in the generative AI space also, where you're trying to do it at the mass level. And एक चीज़ है कि I go back to DOS, decision optimization solution. It is about optimizing decisions. I'll give an example. So let's say you wanted an installment loan, personal loan, and you went to the browser, you opened up 4 tabs, and you found 4 banks, 1 large and 1 fintech and 2 small, right? You are looking to get the best offer in the next 20 minutes. And when I say best offer, an offer that is customized to your needs, both in terms of EMI, the structure, early payments, all of that thing. You're highly informed as a digitally savvy Gen Z. You're trying to get the best offer, which you can, and time is premium for you. You got 20 minutes in which you want to close this thing and move on. And you do not really care whether you bank with the institution that you bank for your payroll. You are happy to do a bunch of best of breed solutions. I can go to my mortgage to somebody, I can go for installment loans to somebody, but you need to be able to close that. And that whole real-time contextualized analytics is the holy grail of where analytics is
full
moving.
stack basically.
Like full stack in that sense, yeah. Full stack, real-time decisioning that you look at and say, wow, yeah, you really anticipated my need. Yes, I'm going to sign up with you. And I carry no baggage. I don't care where you came from, but you solve my problem at my point of need. And that might not be your primary institution. So that's where the holy grail is moving. And I think the GAI piece is going to marry with AI. It's not going to replace it. There is a place for AI for precision things like, should I give you a loan or not?
Sure.
What should I price it at? But when I start to look at things like, let's say as a customer, in customer management, let's say you came to me and said, hey, listen, I'm having certain financial constraints. Can you help me prioritize which bills I should pay off? Which bills how should I prioritize my payment hierarchy on my bills? That's a very bespoke question. That's a deep question. It's not a question that is rule-based. You do need some intelligence and empathy built into this. Now, in the more manual world, you'll have an army of smart customer management reps who will help you with this, but you don't have that wherewithal. These are the kind of questions that can be addressed with generative AI because you have a bank of knowledge that you can harness. Now, you do it carefully because if you give you the wrong advice, you'll come back and say, I got into more trouble than before the call. So you have to be careful of that. So you still might have it more like an agent assist.
Sure.
They're the agent managing 4 or 5 interactions. The GAI is giving you options for person X, person Y, person Z. And then so you are better informed as an agent. So your productivity is higher and your quality of response is better. And you as a customer walks away in customer management, walks away satisfied saying, you know what, that was helpful advice for me, right? Because remember, all agents are not going to have the same skill levels. It's going to take them 5 years to train them to that level of expert. But this expertise that comes in here becomes an agent assist that helps you with this, right? So these are some of this is kind of where the boundaries.
Sure.
Bain Capital had a brilliant article on this, and they kind of said GAI is like between rocks and stones, putting the sand in between and covering the edges. So they're the glue that which traditional AI does not address, and that's why it's not my code. I want to give it to Bain, but BCB kind of put out that saying, you know what, this GAI is like the sand in between, which holistically covers all of the options and looks at solving things that are unseen earlier, essentially, right? Like the bespoke example, or saying what should be my payment structure here when I'm in financial distress.
Wow, I think Aditya, this was a fantastic experience for me personally. A lot to learn, and what I really like is that you are you are a storyteller at heart. I think that I can see.
Everybody needs to be, right? All of us are actually.
Yeah, like you are explaining very complicated things, but you are explaining them in a very simple way. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Now, one last question. If you introspect in your life, what are some things you would not want a young individual who's starting his or her career to not repeat? And you can make this as sort of an advice, like whatever that is. Few mistakes, one mistake, whatever it is.
That I did that
others should not do.
You should not do.
And it does not have to be very specific, it can be generic also.
My career has straddled US and India both, right? Both in terms of business models and where I worked, etc. I think in some ways there is value to do tough things in one place for a long time. In some senses, if there's one advice I could give folks who are starting their careers, be in a place, don't be impatient, take your time. Patience is a virtue for me that is built over time. But I would say build your 1 or 2 core legs of your capabilities, whatever those are, and then persist for a period of time in one location. Location I mean by country, not the city, I mean the country. Persist in that for a period of time. You build your credibility in the marketplace, and then you get the hockey stick inflection point, whether that's your own gig or as part of a larger gig, but you get non-linear returns for the inputs that you put in, right? Don't flip between countries, because everywhere you go...
Starting from ground zero.
Yes. That's not an easy thing to pull off, right? So that is one advice I would give.
Perfect. I think this was fantastic, Aditya. Thank you so much. I hope you had a good time.
Great time.
Perfect. Thank you, Aditya. I appreciate your time.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.